teaming up with Lynn from the Bucket List Homestead, and I will link her down below. And we are doing a Freeze It February videos. So it's all about freezer meals. So if you would like freezer meals, she posted them every day this month from different channels. And so today I am going to be doing mine for the last day of February, and we are going to make a freezer pot pie. Now this can be done simply. I make everything from scratch, but you don't have to. If you don't want to make a pie crust, you can buy a pre-made pie crust. But I'm going to start with my pie crust recipe, and today I'm using some disposables because these are going with my boys down to school so that they have something in the freezer for them. When I make them for me for home, for our family, I usually just use a regular glass pie dish. It's totally up to you. So I'm going to get started here. I've got 2.5 cups of flour, and you can use all-purpose flour or pastry flour. Either one works great. And I've got 2 sticks of cut cold butter, and I'm just gonna get this out here. I've got clean hands, don't worry, washed them before I started the video. Didn't think you'd want to see that. And I've got my salt here. I will post the recipe down in the description below. And we're just going to take a pastry cutter. A fork works also, or a food processor. So any of that will work. I like to just show that you can do this pretty easily with just manual tools. You don't need a special equipment for anything. And so I'm going to make this so that it's got pea-sized pieces of butter and just kind of nicely broken up, and then we're going to use some ice water. I like to use ice water because it helps to keep my butter nice and chilled, and it just depends on the humidity in your house on how much water you will need. I like to start with 1/4 cup and work up from there. My house, I'm pretty used to, I use almost 1/2 cup of water every time, but yours could vary from that. How has your weather been? We were enjoying our weather. It was like almost 70 degrees here in Michigan, and then sudden storm hit, of course. I am ready for spring. I've got my garden plants going. I'm doing a plant sale here at the farm, so that will be fun. This will be my second plant sale at the farm. I like to start my pie crust before I do my filling. So I like to do that because it needs to chill in the fridge for at least 30 minutes just to help get those glutens activated in that flour. And you could also use freshly milled flour for this. So I like to share recipes that are pretty versatile. Today this will be a venison pot pie. You can use any type of meat or no meat and just do veggies. So we're getting there. We're getting there. The butter was pretty cold, so. And I'm sorry if my video quality is poor. We're still trying to work out the kinks on that. Things have not been loading properly except for the shorts. So we are still working diligently trying to get those kinks worked out so that we can start posting weekly longer videos than just the shorts. But we're working with what we've got. Cameras and things are extremely expensive, so we're just kind of working with what we got, and we'll upgrade when we can. Alright, so that's pretty good. I don't get too picky about it because it seems to turn out no matter what. So if you can see this, there are a few bigger pieces, but you just want it nice and crumbly. Those bigger pieces are not going to be a big deal. And I like to mix with my hand on this. So I've got my ice water, and I just like to kind of make a little circle there and get in with my hand. You can also use a fork and just start mixing that in nicely. And you just want the dough so that it sticks together well. So that it's damp enough so that it sticks together You don't want it to crumble apart, but you don't want it overly wet either. Oops, don't want that ice cube. Do you like making freezer meals? I try to make a few every month just to have on hand for, you know, if we have a rush today. You know, if I'm making something, a recipe, say enchiladas or something, and or when I make my pot pies, I try to make a double batch just so I can pop one in the freezer, so I do have that option. If we have a rushed evening, we can still have a good home cooked meal. I'm not one to go out to eat, and with the prices of things these days, we don't usually go out to eat, but maybe once a month, and that's a big maybe. We always end up, we're so used to home cooked food from scratch that we usually end up getting either a stomach ache or a headache wherever we go to eat out. Even if it's just a sit down restaurant, we haven't been tolerating that food as well as we do our home cooked food. Okay, so I think this is just about ready to go, and because I am getting ready to head out, my husband has to have some testing done, so I'm getting ready to head out here for the night, and so I don't want to have a bunch of dishes. You can wrap this in beeswax wrap, but I'm going to use parchment so that I'm not leaving my mom with extra things to wash. So, see how that comes together? It's still slightly crumbly, so it's still just a little bit, but it will stick together when you push it. That is where you want it. Get all of these crumbs, just kind of push it together. And then I am going to divide it into two. It doesn't have to be perfect. So you want kind of two flat discs. I had to get my station cleaned up and I dropped my saran wrap, so I am going to use this just because it'll be easier for my mom to not have extra dishes. And just kind of wrap it up like that, and then we're going to pop it in the fridge for about 30 minutes and get started on that filling. We're going to put them in the fridge. I'm going to make the filling while those crusts are in the refrigerator chilling. So I'm going to turn it on close to medium. I've got a stick of butter, and then I've got a half a cup of flour. So you want equal parts of fat to flour. You can use any fat. I've used lard even, and you just want to bring this, melt it together with the flour, and once that starts to get nice and bubbly is when I'm going to add my seasonings. And I've got garlic powder, onion powder, pepper, and salt. You're not going to need a lot of salt because the broth does have salt in it. Today we're doing venison. I use my canned venison with the liquid. I also use my canned chicken, and you can use literally, I've done hamburger, I've done ground pork. The possibilities are endless with this recipe. I've got some frozen mixed veggies. You can use canned vegetables, you can use fresh vegetables. If you choose to do fresh vegetables, chop them small, and you're going to want to saute them in some butter until they get soft before you put them in the gravy mixture. Otherwise, they will not cook through at all, and you're going to have crunchy veggies, and nobody wants crunchy veggies in their pot pie. And then I'm going to use up, I've got a couple more jars of canned potatoes, and the only way we really like them is either in soups or pot pie. So I'm going to open this and use some of these to get these gone through. All right, so now it's getting nice and smooth and it's gonna start getting bubbly. So while I've got that there, I'm gonna add, I only like to add a little bit of pepper, so not quite a quarter of a teaspoon of black pepper, and then maybe a quarter of a teaspoon or so of salt. That bouillon, remember, is going to, or broth, is going to have salt. And then like a half a teaspoon of garlic powder, a half a teaspoon of onion powder, or you can put onions in it. Maybe just a little bit more onion powder. There we go. And now it's starting to get nice and bubbly. You want to let that cook for about a minute or two just to get that flour taste out. Now I've also done this with gluten-free flour and it works just the same. So don't worry if you're gluten-free. It works just the same. All right, I've also chopped up those potatoes here from the can. I used about half a jar, so about a pint of potatoes. I chopped them up a little bit smaller. And now that this is getting nice and bubbly here, we're gonna add our liquid from our meat. About 1.5 cups to 2 cups of broth. And about 1 cup of milk. We're just going to kind of mix that together, and this will thicken, so it may take a little more liquid. Just go with how thick it is, and you can always add more liquid to it. And then while that's there, I'm going to add in all of our frozen veggies, the potatoes, and the venison. And the venison will spread out when you stir it up. And we're just going to let this cook till it gets thick, just a few minutes. 5 minutes, I like to stir it so that it doesn't stick to the bottom. And now it's nice and thick, and it will continue to thicken as it cools. I've broken up that meat a little bit. And now I'm just going to put this to the side until we roll out our crust. And it'll be a little bit cooler. You don't want it super hot when you're putting it into your crust. So sometimes I even make this up the day before, and I just have it in the fridge and I scoop it into my shells. So however you want to do it, just make sure it's not like boiling when you put it in your shell. The dough is ready and the filling has cooled a bit. It's still pretty warm. So it looks so delicious. And I've just got a little bit of flour here. I'm going to sprinkle it out on my counter just so that that dough does not stick. And then we are going to get it into our pie crust. Are there any freezer recipes that you would like me to do other videos on? Alright. We're just going to roll it out here. My counter is not stable. I don't really have a great area to put my camera. So I am working with what I got for the moment. And I like to have my dough not super thick, but a little bit thick on the thicker side, as opposed to I don't want it see-through when I roll it out. A little more flour here. My house is really warm. I was baking sourdough bread a little while ago. Let me know, would you like any sourdough recipes? I'm trying to work on some recipe books. See if I can't get everyone some recipe books done up. My goal is this summer to have recipes in a book. Alright, so I've got it rolled out, and there we go. I'm just going to take the pan, lay it in there. I don't even trim it yet, so I will put my filling in and then I trim it. I know that sounds kind of backwards, but just how I do it. So I like to fill it nice and full. This recipe actually would make enough for a large one and a smaller one. Oh, I forgot a knife. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. This recipe would make enough for like the small pie pan, the individual, and I actually do like to freeze those a lot because if Lily and I are home and Troy's working late or something, or he's just gone for the evening, I'll throw one in, and her and I, it's enough for her and I to share. So then we're not making a whole huge one. Now when I trim the edges on my pie pans, I like to leave a little over the edge. I don't like it right to the edge of my pan. I like it hanging over just a little more. Like that. And now I'm actually going to set this over here. And then I'm going to sprinkle a little more flour. I'll do this next one here for the top of that crust. What are some fillings you all enjoy? Chicken is one of my favorites, as is the venison. But turkey is good, especially after Thanksgiving. We don't do a lot of turkey here though. Usually just if we have leftovers at Thanksgiving. Otherwise we've never really gotten big into eating a lot of turkey. I do have one in the freezer that Troy hunted that I should probably get used out up. I'm sticking a little bit. Like I said, my house is pretty warm, so it's a little difficult keeping that butter nice and cold. And it's okay. I have days, I'm in a hurry today, and I have days where I'm just piecing this dough together to get a circle, and that's all right. It's all gonna taste the same. Sometimes I like it to look just beautiful and perfect, and other times, well, it tastes good. It might not look great, but boy does it taste good. And that to me is what matters. So now I've got the dough out. Let me grab that pie. Alright, here we go. And now I'm just going to pick it up and slide it over. And I'm going to trim those edges a lot longer over the edges, is how I like to do mine. Because I take that top edge and I seal it over top of the bottom. See if I can show you what I mean here. Alright, so I'm going to see that bottom edge there and the top edge. I'm going to take that bottom, and then the top is going to fold right down under it. And so I am going to do that all the way around, and that helps seal it in so it's not bubbling all over in your oven. That's how I do my regular sweet pies as well. This pie crust is also, it's the perfect pie crust for like, even for sweet pies. However, I add sugar to the recipe. So I will put both recipes down in the description. Alright, so as you can see, it looks kind of thick on the edges, and that's what I like. I like a really nice, thicker, beautiful crust. And then I'm going to take my pointer and thumb and my pointer, and we're just going to pinch, pinch, pinch all the way around. Now when I put these in the freezer, I don't usually do an egg wash on them until they come out of the freezer, and I'll pop an egg wash on it. But because this is for the boys, I'm going to throw an egg wash on it before I freeze it. So there is the beautiful pie, and I'm going to put a V in it for some vent holes, and to show that it's venison. If it's chicken, I put a C, just so that I know which one it is in the freezer. and a couple down the sides, and we are good to go. Now I wrap mine in, I usually put a piece of parchment paper and then saran wrap and then foil is how I always do mine. I don't want to risk freezer burn when I am making my freezer meals. When you pull it out of the oven, I'll have all the information in the description, but you are going to want to pull it out, remove all of that from it. If you want to cover the crust with foil, feel free. It takes at least an hour and 15 minutes in the oven from frozen. Everything is cooked, so you just want that crust nice and done and everything nice and warm through the whole thing. And I bake it at 375 for at least an hour and 15 minutes. And there you go. You have a wonderful, wonderful dinner in the freezer, late nights, or if you're in a rush or anything like that. I really hope you enjoyed this recipe, and let me know if you try it down in the comments below. I would love to hear from you, and be sure to hit that subscribe button and also the like button on the video. This will also be posted over on Lynn at the Bucket List Homesteads page. She will have that down in her playlist, along with a bunch of other channels that have done this collaboration with her all month. So thank you for stopping by our farm channel, and I hope you will join us for more recipes that I will be sharing in the future.